Hi, I'm Arkush for ChicagoSunTimes.com as we review what is often called the best weekend of football of the year, the NFL Divisional Playoffs, and they certainly did not disappoint this past weekend. As a matter of fact, probably the best of the four games. Game one in Foxborough, the New England Patriots and the Baltimore Ravens, an instant classic back and forth. It was really the Tom Brady show in the end, and kind of an unfortunate conclusion for Ravens head coach John Harbaugh, who is one of the best coaches in the league, one of the classiest coaches in the league. But I can tell you for a fact, folks, I've talked to a number of people in the NFL offices, other coaches, there was nothing wrong with what the Patriots and Bill Belichick did on offense. It was Harbaugh afterwards saying it was illegal, that they didn't have a chance, that they couldn't tell which receivers were eligible. Well, how much of a regular part of the NFL vernacular is disguising your coverages on defense? Apparently, Coach Harbaugh forgot you can disguise it no matter where you are. It was another classic case of Bill Belichick / Josh McDaniels coming up with a wrinkle nobody had seen in the second half when they needed an adjustment. Hats off to everybody in that game, but particularly both Tom Brady and Joe Flacco. Outstanding quarterback performances. The New England Patriots, the #1 seed going in. Yes, it was close, but in the end, they had just enough more defense than the Ravens to be the difference. They will host the AFC Championship game in Game 2 this coming Sunday, and they will get a visit from the Indianapolis Colts. The one upset we got this weekend is the final game of the weekend was the Colts going to Denver and the passing of the torch, so to speak. Yes, Peyton Manning, well, he looked pretty bad, and yet Andrew Luck continues to look really good. He did throw 2 interceptions against the Broncos, but they were almost like punts. Long passes on third down didn't really hurt them in any way. They did allow a field goal late in the first half, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. It's the Colts defense that is so interesting because they just weren't playing well the second half of the season, but they've now taken away the running game of the Bengals. They've limited enough the running game of C.J. Anderson and the Broncos to get themselves to a title game. Remember, of course, they did meet the Patriots early this season, and it wasn't pretty as the Patriots rushed for well over 200 yards and beat them by about 23 points. Patriots will be big favorites again, but at this point we're learning don't count out Andrew Luck. Now, the NFC had the second best game of the weekend, but we'll get to that in a moment. First, on Saturday night, it was the defending world champion Seattle Seahawks handling the Carolina Panthers, and the story there is pretty obvious at this point. Number one, they're very difficult to beat at home, and number two, they will beat you on defense if they can't get it done on offense. The Carolina Panthers, even though they're a sub-500 team, they hung tough until late, but when Cam Chancellor stepped in front of that Cam Newton pass down near the goal line as the Panthers were about to make a real ball game out of it and take it 90 yards the other way, that was the end. And from there, it was the typical Seattle formula: grind it out on the ground, play defense, make big plays, rushing the passer, and the Panthers just didn't have enough. The Seahawks, very hard to beat, but they will be getting the second best team in the NFC. Another instant classic, if you will. Game 1 on Sunday. That's where I was on the sidelines in Lambeau Field. Matter of fact, guys, I was about 10 feet away from Des Bryant when he did, in fact, bobble that ball, and that's all you need to know. Yeah, I think it's a catch. You think it's a catch. It looks like a catch, but it's the Calvin Johnson rule. Bears fans should know it well. According to the rules, it was an incomplete pass. The officials absolutely got it right. The point is, it's a bad rule, not a bad call, and you can't fault the officials for doing that. And it's too bad because it took away from a great football game. It was a game in which the line of scrimmage was clearly dominated by the Dallas Cowboys on both sides of the ball in the first half. They raced out to the 21-13 lead early in the second half, and yet in the second half, the Packers came back in the trenches and their offensive line took over the game. For Bears fans, Julius Peppers was a man possessed, unblockable in the first half. In the second half, it was little-used Nick Perry coming off the bench for a couple of key sacks. And Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't really playing on one leg. I know you keep hearing that, but the fact is a badly bruised calf. It's a tough injury for a quarterback. You could tell he was limited in the first half, much better in the second half. It's not the kind of injury that you can medicate or shoot up. We have to assume it just loosened up for him because Rodgers was brilliant in the second half, and in the end, that was the difference. So now we've got championship weekend set. The early game, a repeat of the first game of the season. Remember, the 2014 NFL regular season started on a Thursday night in Seattle. Packers were tough for a half and then got blown out in the second half. Of course, it was the Packers refusing to throw the ball at Richard Sherman that was talked about so much. Well, we'll see if they throw it at him a little bit more this weekend. We know Tom Brady and Andrew Luck will be throwing balls all over the football field in Foxborough. Should be a great championship weekend. We'll preview that for you later in the week. For now, for all the best in sports, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, stay right where you're at ChicagoSunTimes.com.